You don't need a traditional yard to grow food. For a long time, I thought I would need to buy a property with a large yard before I could finally have the garden that I wanted. The problem was I didn't have the money to do that. And honestly, it got depressing. I had this dream of having a garden, but when I looked outside, all what I saw was a swimming pool and paving stones. I couldn't dig into the ground, so I thought my gardening dreams were basically impossible. But over the last few years, I tested 3 different ways to grow food without a traditional yard. GreenStalk vertical planters, grow bags, and passive hydroponic towers that I built out of Home Depot buckets and cuddle pool noodles. Each one solves different problems. One gives you lots of planting pockets in a tiny footprint. One lets you grow almost anything. And one makes me feel like a mad scientist with somehow being much simpler than it looks. But the system I'm most excited about right now is not necessarily the system that I recommend beginners start with. So let's look at what each one does well, what I got completely wrong, and which ones might be the best fit for your space. The first system I tried was a GreenStalk. The second I saw one online, my imagination fired up. It had around 30 planting pockets. It grew vertically, and I started imagining an entire garden growing in a single tower. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, sunflowers, strawberries. I thought I could grow everything in it. And that leads me to the first thing you need to know. I used my GreenStalk completely wrong. The GreenStalk didn't fail me. I tried stuffing tomatoes, peppers, squash, sunflowers, corn, pumpkins, and other heavy feeding plants with massive root systems into small pockets and then acted surprised when they struggled. The main limitation with GreenStalk is root volume. You get lots of individual pockets, but every pocket is still a small container. Large plants with large root systems quickly run out of room, water, and nutrients. Once I stopped trying to force the wrong plants into it, the GreenStalk started working a lot better. I've had great results with lettuce, kale, collards, beans, and cowpeas, herbs, flowers, strawberries, and I'm growing more herbs in them now than I used to because I use a lot of fresh herbs when I cook. I've even been thinking about turning 1 or 2 entire towers into strawberry towers. And one unexpected advantage is that the plants are raised off the ground. I've never had trouble with animals eating my strawberries, and that might be because they are on the highest tier of my green stalks. And that really matters in my yard because anything low to the ground can become dinner for something else. The green stalk is also extremely space efficient. You can grow dozens of smaller plants in roughly the floor space of one large container. For a tiny balcony, patio, or paved yard, this is a major advantage. But there are a few downsides. So I got mine during like a sale for a little bit like over $100 each. Though the exact price depends on the model, accessories, when you buy them. And right now I have about 6 of them that I purchased over the years. The second downside is watering. Because the pockets are relatively small, they dry out faster than other containers. During hot weather, I usually need to water them every 2 or 3 days. And the third biggest issue is crop selection. A green stalk can grow a lot of plants, but that doesn't mean it should grow every plant. Next year, I'm going to focus much more heavily on herbs, strawberries, leafy greens, flowers, and other smaller container-friendly vegetables. And I think that's where the system really shines. Once I realized that many of the crops I wanted needed more root space to grow, I discovered grow bags. And grow bags opened up an entirely different world. I have more than 20 of them right now, ranging from 10 gallons all the way up to 50 gallons. The biggest advantage is versatility. You can get a small grow bag for herbs or compact vegetables, or you can get a massive bag for crops like corn, watermelon, squash, pumpkins, potatoes, okra, tomatillos, large tomatoes, beans, longevity spinach. A lot of the plants that struggled in my green stalks are growing incredibly well in my grow bags because their roots finally have room to spread. My corn is one of the things I'm most proud of right now. And I'm not just growing regular supermarket corn. I'm growing ultraviolet corn, which is a super sweet variety that I'm not going to find in a normal grocery store around here. That is part of what makes gardening valuable to me. I'm not always trying to grow the cheapest possible version of something I can buy anywhere. I want to browse seed catalogs, find something unusual, and actually experience it. In that way, gardening lets me be a bit of a gourmand. I can grow varieties that I can't find in supermarkets or farmer markets, let them ripen properly, and taste them when they're at their best. Grow bags themselves can be insanely cheap. Some of mine cost around $5 for a pack of 5. Of course, a bag is not the entire cost. You still need soil, compost, seeds, amendments, and potentially plant supports. For some of my largest bags, I used a layered filling method with logs, rice hulls, coco coir, minerals, and soil to reduce the amount of expensive potting mix I needed. That took more work than simply dumping soil into the bag, but helped make the larger containers more affordable. The first downside is space. Even though you can plant densely inside a grow bag, a 30, 40, or 50-gallon bag still occupies a lot of floor space. GreenStalks and hydro towers grow vertically. Grow bags spread outwards. The second biggest downside is weight. Once a large grow bag is filled and watered, you need to be very careful about where you place it because you probably aren't going to casually pick it up and move it later. The third downside is animals. Because grow bags are low to the ground, they can become an all-you-can-eat buffet for predators. I've looked outside and seen a groundhog sitting there, eating plants directly from one of my bags. Not sneaking around, not grabbing something or running, just sitting there and eating the garden plants I planted specifically for him. The fourth downside is watering. Small grow bags may need water every day or two in hot weather. My larger bags can sometimes go 4 or 5 days depending on the crop and how densely they're planted. But despite those downsides, grow bags are still the most forgiving system of the three. They hold a lot of soil, you can plant several things together, and if one plant dies, you still have backups. And when something doesn't grow, I usually have two options. Fix a problem or plant, or just plant something else. Sometimes leave the space empty and let the surrounding plants use the extra room. The newest experiment in my garden is passive hydroponics. These started as a fun project. Hydroponics looks like this complicated science experiment, but this version I built is much simpler than it looks. Although building it still makes me feel like a mad scientist. Each tower is made from 3 food-grade Home Depot buckets stacked on one on top of the other. Every bucket is independent. I drilled holes into the sides, cut pieces of pool noodle, placed the plants inside the pool noodles, and used those to hold the plants in the openings. Inside each bucket is mixed with master blend nutrients. There are no pumps, no water is being circulated between the buckets, there are no electronics bringing water to the roots. The roots simply grow down into the nutrient solution, which is why it's called passive hydroponics. When a bucket needs more solution, I remove it from the stack, open the lid, pour the nutrient mixture, and put everything back together. The setup takes the most work out of all 3 systems. You need to measure and drill the holes, you need to cut the pool noodles, you need to mix the nutrients in the correct order and ratios at the correct times, and the seedlings need to be large enough that the roots can reach the water. By the time I included the buckets, lids, nutrients, pool noodles, and everything else, my setup cost around $110. So the hydro towers are not as cheap or as quick to begin as grow bags, but once they're established, they're surprisingly low maintenance. My pepper tower may only need to be refilled once every 2 or 3 weeks. The tomato tower drinks much faster, but even that usually lasts around 1 week to a week and a half. Compare that with watering a GreenStalk every few days, or watering smaller grow bags almost every day during the hottest parts of summer. The hydro towers require more work at one time, but less frequent attention afterwards. This is only my first year using them, so I don't want to pretend that I have years of controlled experiments behind me. but the early results are staggering. My peppers flowered and began producing months earlier than the peppers I grew in my green stalks last year. And my hydroponic tomato plants appear to have around 5 times as many tomatoes as the plants in my grow bags. Now these are different tomato varieties. They were grown during the same season, but this isn't a controlled scientific experiment. So I'm not saying hydroponics will always produce exactly 5 times as much. I'm saying that the difference in my garden is large enough that I can't ignore it. The tomatoes are bigger, the plants are producing heavily, and the hydro towers currently have the best cherry tomato yields of any system in my garden. That's why passive hydroponics is a system I'm most excited to expand. Now, the obvious downside is the DIY work. Someone who hates measuring, drilling, cutting, and assembling things will probably not enjoy building the system. Plants can occasionally get knocked out of the pool noodles. When it happens, I normally just place them back into position. And because this is still an experiment, there are plenty of things I need to keep watching. But so far it feels like a combination of the other two systems. It has a small vertical footprint, like a GreenStalk, although it holds fewer plants, but each plant gets much more root space and constant access to water and nutrients. So which one should you choose? Here's my answer. For the smallest balcony or patio, choose a GreenStalk. You can get a large number of pockets in a tiny footprint, especially for herbs, strawberries, leafy greens, flowers, and smaller crops. For large plants and maximum variety, choose grow bags. You can select the exact size you need and grow almost anything, from herbs in a small 10-gallon bag to corn, squash, watermelons, or pumpkins in much larger bags. For someone concerned about groundhogs or ground-level pests, choose a GreenStalk or another system that raises plants off of the ground. For someone who hates DIY projects, choose grow bags. Buy the bag, add soil, plant your seeds, and you could be finished in just a few minutes. For someone who wants faster and more frequent harvests and doesn't mind building something, passive hydroponics is extremely promising. It's a system I'm most excited to experiment with next year. But for the average gardener who simply wants me to tell them for which one to buy, grow bags, bar none. They're cheap, forgiving, available in almost any size, and versatile enough to grow almost anything. You don't need to understand hydroponic nutrients. You don't need to spend around $100 on a vertical planter. You need a bag, soil, seeds, sunlight, and water. For years, I thought I needed to wait until I could afford a property with a large yard before I could become a gardener. But the best system isn't the one that requires acres of land. It's the one that lets you start growing today. And a small garden may not completely replace the grocery store, but it can give you the food the grocery store doesn't even sell. You can grow rare corn, unusual tomatoes, herbs you can't find locally, or strawberries picked at the exact moment that they're ripe. You can build a deeper relationship with what you eat. You can walk outside, look at something interesting growing, and know that it exists because you made room for it. And the cool thing about all three of these systems is that they're scalable. You can begin with just one grow bag, one GreenStalk, or one hydro tower, and then you can build from there. In future videos, I want to find out how much value a small space can actually produce, not just in pounds of food, but in growing density, quality, rare varieties, and ingredients you cannot find locally. So tell me what kind of small space you have, what you want to grow, and I should tell you what system you want to grow with. And subscribe if you want to see just how far we can push a garden without a traditional yard.